The following video was written and produced before the George Floyd murder and the resulting protests. These protests are a justifiable expression of frustration, anger, and pain. But as President Obama has said, to make lasting change, we have to win elections. And to do that, liberals have to win the Electoral College and the Senate by convincing conservatives in the battleground states. The following video is intended to help channel that anger into constructive efforts to win elections in November 2020.
Hi, today I'm going to tell you about the 5 big mistakes liberals make when they try to persuade conservatives. Mistakes that could lead to a loss in the November 2020 election. Then I'll tell you what you should do instead. At the end of this video, I'll give you details about attending my free introductory webinar, where you can learn even more. You can also find my book, Persuade Don't Preach, with in-depth tips and strategies online at Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. Okay now, if you want to learn how to successfully change people's minds, pay attention to what I'm about to say. The first mistake people make is thinking that the more powerfully they protest, the more effective they'll be at getting their point across. Why is that a mistake? Because research shows the louder the protest, the more it boomerangs. People's beliefs actually intensify when they encounter a forceful argument they disagree with. Let me repeat that. When you protest, you're actually boosting the beliefs you don't want. The researchers who describe this call this the activist dilemma. Protests are useful for raising awareness, but they don't help at all in convincing people you're right. That's a boomerang, and it comes back and hurts you. Mistake number 2, calling people names or trying to shame them in their behavior is also counterproductive. It doesn't help to tell people that they're racist or that their attitudes are fascist. Scolding doesn't change anything. At best, they become paralyzed. At worst, they get defensive and, yes, strengthen in their beliefs. Let me give you an example. On a trip I took to the middle of the U.S., I heard a radio host go on a long rant about how AOC has called people like her, the host, a racist, but that she wasn't really a racist. Creating an argument like that doesn't help convince anyone of anything. It doesn't persuade them of anything. That's another boomerang. Mistake number 3 is relying just on the facts. Facts can be interpreted in many ways, depending on the person's context. People also pick and choose the facts they want to believe. Psychologists call this motivated reasoning. Facts alone aren't enough. That's what the term fake news references. Another boomerang. Mistake number 4 is to focus on the issues. You may think you're on safe ground, but the issues have already become well entrenched in a political view. People know what you think, so you just set yourself up for a partisan argument. Doesn't work. The final mistake number 5 that liberals make, is to attack the opposing party's leader. There's no better way to arouse a negative reaction among conservatives. Even if they don't totally agree with them, once you've attacked, they feel compelled to defend. You aren't going to convince anyone of anything that way. That's a true boomerang. But I don't want you to just stop making these mistakes. I want you to know what you can do instead. I want to teach you how you can convince someone who up till now has disagreed with you. There's a lot to it, but let me summarize the basics in 3 steps. If you want more in-depth details, sign up for my free introductory webinar at the end of this presentation, or buy my book, Persuade Don't Preach. Step 1. Seek to understand. I know it's really hard to listen to people you disagree with, but the key is to try to get inside the heads of people who aren't like you. Reading books like Jonathan Haidt's The Righteous Mind and my own book, Persuade Don't Preach, help you to understand other people and the ways they think. You need to understand their worldview and their values, what I call their ethical zones, in order to understand the basics of why they react the way they do. Once you truly understand what's important to them, you can look at things in a new way. Step 2. Ask questions. In order to really understand, once you've read these books, you need to confirm what you think you learned by asking questions. Don't assume. Ask someone who espouses these beliefs some questions about whether your understanding is correct, and listen to their answers carefully. Step 3. Use what you learn to reframe. This is the core of the technique I recommend, which was developed by Rob Willer of Stanford University and Matt Feinberg of University of Toronto. It involves taking one of those key beliefs I just talked about, one that you learned is important to the people you want to convince, but not one that's important to you, and then tie it to the issue that's important to you. Research has demonstrated over and over again that you can shift people's minds when you do that. But this isn't just a technique that's been used in the psychology lab, it's also been used in real life. The best example I've run across is how the gay rights movement was successful in overturning attitudes towards gay marriage. It wasn't the forceful protest marches or the riots that changed attitudes. It was the continued focus by a grassroots effort on the sacred family value of marriage that won the day. If you follow my steps, you can copy their success. Do you want to know more? I give lots of details in my book, Persuade Don't Preach, available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. There's also a link to my free introductory webinar on my website, persuadedon'tpreach.com, without the apostrophe and don't. And if you really want to dive deep, you can sign up for my 5-session workshop where you'll get a chance to practice what you learn. If you have any questions or want help for your organization, please email me at info@ethicalframes.com. I hope to hear from you.